The hum of the coffee maker was the first thing I heard. It was soft, steady, almost like a heartbeat. Then came the birds. They weren't loud, just there, doing what they always did. I stood in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug that felt too warm for how cold I was inside. Mornings used to mean peace, the quiet kind you work your whole life to earn. These days, they felt like waiting rooms for things you didn't want to hear. Sarah had started leaving earlier, before sunrise, before alarms, before the world even remembered it had to spin. I didn't ask why anymore. I just noted the cold sheets beside me, the silent phone, the lipstick stain left on a mug that wasn't mine. I could still smell her perfume, something citrusy and light. She sprayed it near the hallway before heading out, and now the scent lingered like some cruel joke, like comfort that forgot it didn't belong here anymore. I didn't expect anything to break that morning. That's the thing about breaking, you never hear the crack until it's all the way through. She walked in like she always did, hair perfect, jacket creased, phone already in hand. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but she beat me to it. "Bane's coming to get me," she said. Her voice was clean, surgical. "I'm going back to him." I blinked once, maybe twice. No raised voice, no slamming hands on the table, just a quiet nod. "So this is how you do it," I said. She didn't answer, just picked up the mug she didn't drink from and set it back down like it was too heavy for what it meant. No explanation, no apology. Years of shared history crushed into one sentence. She walked out of the kitchen like she was heading to the store. No tears, not even a glance. And that was the worst part. The silence, the knowing that her mind had left this place long before her body ever did. I watched her take the keys from the hook near the door. Same hook we mounted the week we moved in. Her fingers brushed the small carved keychain, walnut wood, hand-shaped into a tiny heart. I made it for her on our second anniversary, back when small things meant something. There are doors we close with a key, and some we never knew we locked from the inside. She didn't slam the door, just pulled it shut with the kind of care you give when you don't want to wake someone, except I was already wide awake. I didn't move, didn't try to stop her. That door between us had been closed for years. I just never had the guts to test the handle. Outside, I heard the growl of an engine. A sleek black SUV pulled into the driveway. Didn't belong in this neighborhood. Too polished, too loud. Bane stepped out like he owned the street. Sarah didn't look back, not really. She adjusted her coat, walked straight to him. He opened the door for her. That used to be my thing, my small gesture. But it wasn't the car door that did me in. It was her face, that look that said, "I've been gone long before I packed." The SUV backed out, no honk, no pause. Just the quiet crush of tires over gravel as it turned the corner and disappeared. And then there was just me. I stood in the entryway like an extra in my own life. Walls felt too wide, too loud. I sat down on the bottom step, mug still warm in my hands, but the coffee was cold. I took a sip anyway. I gave her everything quiet, I muttered. Maybe she needed someone loud. A flash hit me, years ago, carrying her across that same threshold. Laughing, young, hopeful. I thought we were building something. What did I miss while playing the good man? The words tasted like rust. I didn't cry, didn't even blink much, just stared at the closed door, sipping silence. Some losses don't come with sound. Some goodbyes are so quiet you only hear them after they're gone. I looked at that door again. It wasn't just a door, not anymore. I didn't stop her. But something told me this wasn't over. I didn't move for a long while after she left. I just sat there listening to the kind of silence that didn't feel empty. It felt occupied, like it had hands and eyes watching me, measuring the weight of her absence. The house was still hers. Every room carried her scent, like she had just stepped out and might be back in 5 minutes. The coffee mug she left sat half full on the counter, steam long gone, but the warmth not yet faded. I touched it, stupidly, half hoping it might offer something more than heat. Then I saw it. The note on the fridge, meal plan for the week. Taco night, Tuesday. Her handwriting, still cheerful, still curved like nothing was broken. It felt surgical, like someone saying goodbye but leaving their perfume behind so you wouldn't notice the blood. I started cleaning, not because it was dirty, but because I couldn't stand still anymore. Wiping counters, rearranging utensils, opening and closing drawers. Everything in its place, yet everything felt out of place. "How can a house feel abandoned?" I whispered, "when nothing's missing?" And still, everything was missing. I reached for my phone, opened the text thread with Sarah. It was all still there, or so I thought, until I scrolled. There were gaps, empty bubbles where messages should have been, deleted, or just never answered. The most recent ones were hollow. "Can you grab almond milk? Don't forget the HOA check. Emojis instead of sentences, logistics instead of love, no warmth, no depth, just transactions." I hit play on a voice memo I sent her weeks ago. Just a dumb thing, me narrating the sound of rain because she said once it helped her sleep. It was still unopened. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I hoped hearing my own voice would remind me I existed in that space, but all it did was confirm what I'd been dodging. She had stopped listening long before she walked out. It wasn't sudden. It was subtraction, slow and silent. Our last real conversation. I couldn't even name it. That's when I remembered. 2 weeks ago, middle of the night, I woke up to whispering. I thought she was dreaming. She said she was, but the whispers were too clear. They had shape, intention. I stood in the hallway, squinting down the corridor. She was there, back turned, talking low. When she saw me, she hung up or claimed she was sleep-talking. I didn't push. That was my mistake. I gave her the benefit of the doubt and she took the whole damn store. Now, that moment burned in my mind like a warning I ignored. I pulled up the porch security cam on my laptop, scrolled back a couple of nights. There, 11:38 p.m., someone stood just beyond the edge of the porch light. The shadow of a man, tall, still. Sarah came out, handed him something, looked like a small envelope. No words exchanged, just a look, a nod. Then she turned back inside. That wasn't a goodbye. That was a handoff. I paused the video, rewound, watched it again, slower this time. She wasn't scared, wasn't surprised. She was calm, in control. And me? I was somewhere inside, probably fixing something that didn't matter, believing everything was fine. Was I naive? I asked out loud, or just willing to believe a lie to keep the peace? I sat at the table we used to share dinner on, same spot where she laughed at Bain's name like it meant nothing. I didn't catch it then. That laugh, it wasn't about the joke, it was about what she already knew. Sometimes betrayal doesn't scream. Sometimes it chuckles, slips a wink and leaves no trace. I looked around. This wasn't new. This was premeditated. Sometimes love doesn't die, I murmured. It just changes owners. The worst part wasn't that she left. It was that she planned it so well. Smiled through it, measured every step like she'd done it before. I stood up too fast. Cabinet door slammed harder than I meant. The sound bounced off the walls, finally louder than the silence. I breathed heavy, then sat back down, clicked play, one more time on the porch footage. And that's when I saw it, something I missed the first time. Sarah didn't just walk away. She smiled. Not for me. And it wasn't innocent. I stared at the frozen frame on the security feed, the one I'd already replayed half a dozen times. It wasn't just her walking out the door. It was her face. That smile. Small, almost secretive, the kind you don't give a spouse on the way out. I leaned closer to the screen until my own reflection overlapped hers. That wasn't a goodbye, I muttered. That was a win. The realization landed heavy. It had been there all along. How many times had she given that smile to Bain while I sat in another room thinking we were fine? I remembered a night last spring when I'd said to her, "You're the calm in my storm." She'd stared at her phone, lips tight, and said nothing. Back then I told myself she was distracted. Now I saw it for what it was. Distance disguised as routine. Silence choreographed, not accidental. My finger hovered over the pause button, and for the first time since she left, I felt the anger rise above the numbness. The house was dark except for the glow of the screen. I got up, restless, and walked to our bedroom. I wasn't searching for anything in particular, just needed movement. The closet door creaked open. My eyes landed on a neat pile of scarves, and beneath them, a box wrapped in deep blue paper. I pulled it out slowly. The label on top read, "To A. I'll always choose you." My stomach clenched. Arlo. But the handwriting wasn't hers. The loops were too sharp, too masculine. And then it hit me. Ainsley. Bain's middle name. I pressed the box to my nose. A sharp, expensive cologne rose up, one I'd never worn. It was like finding a stranger's jacket draped over your favorite chair. She had hidden him here, right under my roof. She'd accepted another man's gift and tucked it into the place where we stored our lives. It was a private betrayal sitting in my hands, tangible now in a way her distance hadn't been. I carried the box back to the kitchen and set it on the table like evidence. The chair across from me was empty, but it felt crowded with all the conversations we never had. I thought back to the nights I'd asked, "Are you okay?" And she'd murmur, "Just tired." The mornings she'd stare into the fireplace as if waiting for someone else to show up. We hadn't laughed together in over a year. Real laughter, not the polite kind. A flash of memory, the weekend retreat she canceled last minute. "Work emergency," she'd said. I'd gone alone, sitting in a hotel bar pretending to believe it. She wasn't working, she was with him. The truth sat bitter on my tongue. She wasn't busy, I said out loud. She was choosing someone else. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the tile. My hands hit the cabinet door and it slammed shut with a sharp crack that echoed through the kitchen. "Why didn't you just leave?" My voice filled the empty space, sounding foreign even to me. I poured bourbon into a glass but let it sit untouched. Even the act felt pointless now. I thought about how she'd folded my shirts the day before she left. Slow, careful, like a ritual. It wasn't kindness, it was rehearsal. A play I didn't know I was in. For a second, self-blame tried to take hold. Maybe I'd been too quiet, too trusting. I shook it off. "I'm not the villain in this," I whispered. "It takes two to break trust, but only one to choose silence." I went into the den and sat at my desk, the one where I drafted other people's escape plans for a living. Contracts, settlements, legal exits. Tonight, it was my turn. I opened a fresh page in my notebook and wrote one word at the top. Exit. My pen moved on its own, making lists. Financial, legal, emotional, not revenge. Clarity, steps, not reactions. Facts before confrontation. Dates, proof, timelines. She wasn't going to rewrite my story for me. She left, I thought, staring at the word. But she's not taking the narrative with her. I flipped open my laptop, not to replay her smile again, but to type Bain's name into a search bar. His company profile popped up first. Scroll, scroll, then a link. Criminal record. "You can steal a wife," I said quietly, voice steady now, "but your past never forgets you." I pushed open the door to our bedroom. The sheets lay rumpled as though she had only just risen, and yet she wasn't here. Her side of the closet stood ajar. A dress I'd given her still hung neatly, untouched. On the shoe rack lay her favorite heels, arranged just as she always placed them. My heart pounded. I closed the door behind me, and the click sounded far too loud in that space. She used to pass these walls every morning. One day, she vanished. The room carried her absence so heavily I could almost trace her scent in the air, perfume whispering between closets. I stepped into her wardrobe, hands trembling. Her clothes still folded, scarves cascading down like a memory. I sifted through sweaters, bras, silk tops. Beneath them, hidden almost perfectly, I found a small dust-coated gift box. It looked out of place. I drew it out and the lid read, A for always. My breath caught. I opened it slowly. Inside lay 2 rings, one with my initials, clean and simple. The other had AB engraved. My fingers faltered. I found a receipt tucked beneath them from a boutique in Dallas dated 2 days ago, paid with a credit card in Bain's name. Betrayal chilled me. She had rehearsed this gift, hidden it, accepted it, hid it in the home she claimed with me. I bolted upright. That ring was a message. A few hours ago, she'd smiled in front of the porch cam, and I thought it was an accident. But now this box proved otherwise. This wasn't a slip. It was a plan, a cold incision into everything we built. I walked the hallway, the box in one hand. I replayed her glance at the door that morning, the muted clicks of her steps, the way she tucked her phone in her jacket. All of it felt placed. I remembered the day she asked me to help pick a necklace for her birthday. I thought it was gesture. It was rehearsal. That ring appeared in her closet without my touch. She didn't need me to choose it. She'd already chosen him. A quiet doubt gnawed. Was I ever in her mind, or just filling space? I felt the contrast. Our closeness turned cold. The warmth of our shared home swallowed now by hollow chambers. One tear escaped, not from weakness but from hurt pride. Something intimate had been stolen. I closed the closet door halfway and walked to the mirror in the bathroom. The reflection, tired eyes, disheveled hair, anger simmering. I whispered to myself, "You can't steal my story." I traced my fingers over the sink edge, slowed my pulse. One by one, I opened drawers and removed anything with her initials. Stationery, a scarf, a jewelry box. I reclaimed what I could touch. I tucked the blue box into the hallway console and left the closet door slightly open. It was bait now. I walked out, letting its humiliation sit in the dark behind me. As I reached the hallway, I heard a soft voice over the security mic. Her voice, quiet, echoing. "I never meant." The words faded. I woke up at 6:03 a.m. without an alarm. My back ached from the tension of sleeping in a body that no longer trusted its own home. The light through the blinds had changed overnight. It wasn't warm anymore. It was thin and sharp, the kind of light that makes you see everything. The other side of the bed stayed cold, sheets pressed smooth where she'd stopped lying weeks ago. That emptiness wasn't a wound anymore, it was a marker. I opened my laptop, played the security footage again, every frame like a needle pushed in deeper. Her face, her voice, the box. Then I closed it and typed 3 words at the top of a blank page. Living will, addendum. My fingers felt steady, deliberate. I said quietly to the empty room, "If they want chaos, I'll respond with clarity." Around 8, she walked in, no knock. "I came to talk, just once," she said, standing like a stranger who had lost her address. Her hair was undone. Her eyes weren't soft. She didn't look guilty, just bothered. I motioned to the chair across from me at the kitchen table. Sunlight cut across her face like a blade. I didn't raise my voice. I started with facts one after the other, like stones placed carefully, the closet, the hidden gift, the footage. Each sentence changed her expression, irritation fading, discomfort rising. She opened her mouth once, then closed it. I looked at her and finally said what I'd been swallowing for years. "If you ever loved me, you would have left with honesty, not manipulation." She blinked, but stayed silent. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope, slid it toward her. My final offer, written on the front. She hesitated before opening it. Inside, documentation of asset transfers, an exit agreement, conditions of silence. She gave a short, flat laugh. "You can't be serious." I leaned back, voice level. "You underestimated the damage of your silence more than your actions." She straightened. "I'll fight this." I met her eyes. "Please do. Discovery will be enlightening." The air shifted between us. My calm wasn't submission anymore. It was power. She knew it. We stepped outside together. She held her car keys like a weapon. I carried nothing. The driveway felt like a courtroom. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I said quietly, "You always wanted choices. Now I've given you one." Across the street, a neighbor stopped at his mailbox, pretending not to stare. No yelling, no scene, just the truth sitting between us. She got in the car, still trying to salvage pride. I stood there until the sound of the engine faded and thought, I don't need closure when I've reclaimed my narrative. Back inside, I began clearing my space. Deleted voicemails, cleared message threads, updated my emergency contacts, her name gone. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. This time, the man looking back wasn't hollow. He'd taken his voice back. Today, I stopped being her option, I said aloud. I texted my sister. I might need that spare room after all. Opened a fresh journal, wrote its title, After Her. That night, my phone buzzed, unknown number. The text read, "You don't know the half of it." I didn't answer, but I saved the number. I pulled into the driveway just after sundown. The sky was that in-between color, not quite dark, not quite light, just enough to blur the edges of everything. I stepped out, groceries in one hand, keys in the other, no one waiting, no porch light turned on. I opened the front door and the silence rushed in to meet me like it had been holding its breath. Inside, the house didn't feel still. It felt like it was listening. I paused at the entryway, keys still dangling from my fingers, and stared into the dim living room. The shadows stretched longer than they should have. I turned on the lights. Each switch flicked like it mattered, but nothing changed. It was too quiet, a kind of quiet that wasn't natural. The dining table was still set. One plate, one set of utensils. I'd left it like that yesterday. Don't know why. Maybe to keep up some illusion, but now it felt ridiculous. Stale coffee lingered in the air, mixed with something faintly metallic, maybe the radiator kicking back up, maybe memory. I moved through each room slowly like I was chasing a ghost, touching door frames, opening closets, trying to see the space the way she used to. But no matter how much I tried, all I felt was the echo of her absence. Every corner, every drawer, remembered her better than I did now. I didn't feel hungry, but I cooked anyway. Grilled cheese, tomato soup, same thing we used to make together on slow nights. I plated it carefully, sat at the head of the table. Lights dimmed just enough to cast a warm glow over the wood. The chair across from me remained empty. I stared at it like an idiot, half hoping it might move, that I'd hear her voice from the hallway saying she forgot something and had to come back. But the chair didn't move. I picked up my fork. My hand trembled a little. I took one bite. It tasted like nothing, like the memory of a taste. I looked up, 7:12 p.m. Her usual return time from yoga. I put the fork down, pushed the plate away. "I'm not waiting anymore," I said aloud, and I meant it. The phone buzzed on the counter. I checked it without much thought. Message from Edric Locke. "Saw the news. Call me when you're ready. I'm sorry I never saw what she lost." I froze. My thumb hovered over the screen. His words read soft, but I knew better. That man had stood next to me at our wedding, hand on my shoulder, eyes like steel. I remembered Christmas at their place. Long dinners, polished silver, Sarah talking just enough to be present, never enough to be real. That message, it cut both ways, like he was apologizing for her, like he was trying to dig his way back to me, even though he never fully stood with me in the first place. I didn't know if I wanted to forgive, but I did want to understand. I saved the number, not for closure, for answers. Later that night, I passed through the living room again and looked up. Above the fireplace, our wedding portrait was gone. Same frame, different photo, Sarah and Bain, laughing, wind in their hair, somewhere coastal, looked like Florida. She looked lighter in that picture than I'd seen her in years. The plaque underneath, our names, had been scratched out, not removed, scratched, intentionally. I stepped closer. My reflection caught in the glass. It looked wrong. Edges warped. Not me. She hadn't just left. She was rewriting the story without me. And this house, once ours, was turning into something else entirely. Something curated. Something false. I turned and walked straight into my study, pulled open the desk drawers, grabbed the binder with financial records, the thumb drive with security footage, every printed bank statement I'd kept for too long. Laid them all out. I wrote at the top of a fresh sheet of paper, what I still own, what she no longer holds. Item by item, I built the list. It wasn't just about property. It was about truth, memory, my name. I cross-checked everything. The night the gift box was moved, the day Bain's transfer came in, the morning her keycard stopped working at the office. Patterns. They were everywhere now. I'd just stopped looking. I sent Leora a message. Need anything she asked me not to keep. Pictures, notes, anything. She responded 2 minutes later. I got you. I stood in the dark, blinds closed, the glow from my laptop the only light. I didn't feel rage, not now. What I felt was quieter, sharper, resolve. Then the phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Josan Ford. I have something you need to see. The sun was starting to lean west when I stepped out into the front yard. The shadows across the grass stretched like they were trying to leave first. I had a manila folder tucked under my arm, content simple, asset records, witness summaries, and a few selected stills from the security cameras, the kind that made the truth hard to wiggle out of. I didn't bother looking polished. I wasn't out to impress anybody. I was done performing grief. The mailbox stood silent like always. But today, it had weight. Inside was the letter I asked Corin to drop off, something I knew would burn as soon as I opened it. I took it out slowly, heavy stock, her father's legal firm's watermark still faintly visible. As I walked back toward the porch, I looked out toward the road. I half expected her car to be there, but there was nothing, just wind and suspicion hanging in the air. "This ain't about love anymore," I said under my breath. "This is about legacy." I caught a few sideways glances from neighbors. Some of them had lived on this street longer than my marriage had lasted. They didn't wave, didn't look long, but they saw me. That was enough. I sat on the porch step, opened the envelope. The letter inside wasn't long, 1 page, but every line hit harder than the last. It was a full legal transfer. Sarah had moved all beneficiary statuses from me to Bain. Life insurance, shared real estate, joint accounts, even medical directives. Everything we once built was now signed over like some kind of inheritance to a man who had nothing to do with its construction. It was clean, silent, deadly. I hadn't signed anything. Not one form, no notifications, no courtesies. She'd found a way to reroute power behind my back, and she did it with a lawyer's hand and a thief's timing. I folded the paper slowly. My hand shook, not out of weakness, but from sheer disgust. "She didn't just walk away," I muttered. "And she rewrote the will while I was still breathing." That was when the black SUV pulled up in front of my house. 5 o'clock, on the dot. White flowers spilled out of the open hatch, a foldable arch being unloaded, a portable speaker system, chairs in tight rows on the front lawn. I didn't move at first. I stood there watching as if it was a movie. The banner went up over the archway. "Sarah Bain, forever." I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't an accident. Out stepped Bain in a dark vest. Then Sarah, in white, ivory satin, hair done like she was royalty. They set up a wedding on my yard. My grass, my house behind them. My history being bulldozed in real time. The same porch speakers I'd installed last fall crackled to life, playing the song Sarah and I danced to at our own reception. I couldn't breathe at first. It was so rehearsed, so polished, like they were trying to kill me with coordination. Guests arrived, maybe 20, dressed clean, phones out. Laughing, I stood up, folder still in hand, walked across the lawn. Not a single soul stopped me. I stepped under the arch, right between the two of them. I could hear someone whisper, "Is that him?" I didn't raise my voice. "You built this ceremony on my soil," I said, voice low but steady. "You used my past to sell your future." Sarah blinked. Bain flinched just enough to notice. I handed the officiant the letter. "Read this out loud." He looked confused, then read it anyway. When he said the words beneficiary transfer from spouse to external party, the guests quieted. Phones stopped recording. You could feel the air tighten, the kind of silence that comes when people realize they're part of something rotten. No one clapped. No one cheered. Sarah's face turned from porcelain to fire. I didn't stay for the fallout. I turned and walked away, back through the yard, past the cars, through my front door. Each step got lighter. Inside, I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I walked to the mirror in the hallway, looked at myself. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't see a man trying to survive. I saw a man standing in what was rightfully his. "This was never your stage to claim," I whispered. I sat down, hands shaking a bit. But I was grounded, steady, ready. The phone lit up beside me, a notification. "Have you seen what she posted?" I tapped the screen. It was a photo of me under that wedding arch. Alone. Caption read, "His legacy died today." After they left, Bain, Sarah, and their parade of guests, I didn't turn on any lights. I just walked through the dark, letting the silence wrap around me like a blanket soaked in years of rot. I passed the closet near the hall, same one where I'd found that gift box before all hell broke loose. Something on the floor caught a little glint from the moonlight slipping through the blinds. I bent down, a piece of carved wood, thin, like it broke off something. I picked it up. The edge was smooth, curved, not accidental. I opened the closet, moved a few jackets aside, ran my hand along the back panel. My fingers hit a shallow groove. I leaned in, squinting, carved right into the wood. "You're enough." I stood frozen. That same phrase from the folded towel on day one, except backward. That wasn't meant for me. That was her talking to herself. But now it felt like it belonged to me. I pulled at the panel with the flat of my hand. It creaked open about 2 inches. Just enough. Behind it, a space hollowed out, lined in old felt. Inside, a small zip bag, thumb drives, 3 of them. One labeled, Evidence, Lock Estate. My chest got tight. I went straight to my study, plugged one into the laptop. I didn't blink. A list of files popped up. PDFs, audio recordings, email screenshots. I clicked on a video. Low light. Sarah and Bain at some dining table I didn't recognize. Sarah's voice. "The accounts are in place. He'll never trace this back." Bain's voice. "So the transfer goes through Friday?" Sarah. "Yes. He won't ever know this is her plan." Her plan. Her plan. I sat back. My stomach twisted, but not from grief anymore. From clarity. She'd hidden it inside my own house, my walls, like some sick scavenger hunt. "You buried it here," I said under my breath. "I'll bury you with it." I started uploading, not all, not yet, but enough to prove it wasn't just a messy divorce. This was something else. I built a secure link, uploaded clips, photos, a couple of the most damning audio files. I sent it straight to a reporter I knew from college. Local news. Quiet but relentless. Then I waited. It didn't take long. My phone lit up with a text. "Got it. Going live at 9. By 9:03, I heard the notifications before I saw them. Buzz. 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 "Is this the real Sarah?" "He's been silent too long." She played both sides. The internet, once her throne, had turned. Neighbors started texting, people I hadn't spoken to in years. "You okay?" We saw the video. And finally, "Proud of you." For the first time in months, I didn't feel like the fool in the shadows. She did. The front door slammed open. I was still in the living room, arms crossed. Sarah walked in like a storm in heels. "You had no right to post that. That was private." "No," I said calmly, "that was evidence." She waved her phone. "I will sue you for defamation, you understand?" "This is illegal." I picked up the printouts from the table, placed them in her hands. "Those are your emails, your accounts, your voice." Her face drained. She shuffled through the pages, lips parting. No sound. "You didn't expect I'd dig, did you?" She snapped back. "You think this makes you the hero? You humiliated me." I didn't answer. She tried to delete things from her phone. She made a few calls. No one answered. The power had shifted, and she felt it. She stood still in the center of my house, not angry now, just lost. And I saw it. I didn't offer comfort. Later that night, the house settled. Quiet. Not peaceful, but purposeful. I walked through the hallway, took down the remnants of their little display. Flowers, ribbons, that ridiculous forever sign. I threw it all in a trash bag. I looked at the living room wall. The frame was still there, empty now, and I noticed that little closet again. I went back to it, opened the panel one more time. "You're enough," still there, carved and silent. But this time I felt its echo. I closed the panel, locked it. My phone buzzed. Josan. Her message said, "You did what I thought you'd never do." I typed back, "This is only the beginning." I walked outside, breathing in the night air. I didn't feel broken anymore. Not naive, not stuck. I felt awakened. The phone rang again, no name on the screen. I answered. A low voice whispered, "You're far from done." I woke just after midnight. The house was still, but my phone buzzed in waves like a low drumbeat from the other side of the bed I no longer shared. Dozens of messages, news articles, screenshots, people tagging my name with words like "finally" and "truth." I sat up slowly, no rush. The damage from yesterday still lingered all around. Chairs toppled outside, petals scattered in the grass, The wedding arch snapped in half and shoved into the trash can near the driveway. Inside, the frame that once replaced our wedding photo was gone. Just a pale rectangle on the wall where it had hung, a ghost that no longer mattered. I walked to the fireplace, the spot where the original wedding portrait once lived. It was bare now, just wood and ash. But that emptiness felt stronger than anything I'd hung there before. I let out a slow breath, not relief, not joy, just space. On my desk, tucked in the back of the drawer, was an old photo I hadn't touched in years. A single folded napkin shaped like a leaf from a dinner I made for her our second month together. Back then, I thought small gestures could change everything. Maybe I was right, maybe just too early. I held the photo in my hand for a moment, walked the house. Not aimlessly, intentionally. I passed by where we'd set that dinner table years ago. The candles, her laugh, that damn folded napkin. I scanned it, posted it quietly to the same folder I'd used to upload the evidence, captioned it simply, "Before I was forgotten." Comments started rolling in within minutes. "I remember that dinner. Wow, this was always you. She doesn't deserve your silence anymore." That napkin, once small and soft, now cut deeper than any speech. A single image, and it spoke louder than all the accusations ever could. Around 3:30 a.m., I heard the knock. Not loud, just 2 taps. I opened the door. There she was, Sarah. Her eyes were red, face pale, makeup gone. She didn't speak. Just looked past me, into the house like it didn't belong to her anymore. I stepped aside. She entered. Not with confidence, not like she used to, like someone walking through a museum of regrets. I didn't offer her a seat. She opened her mouth to speak. I raised a hand. "You've said enough." She stood there frozen, waiting for me to tear into her. But I didn't need to. I listed her own actions. Not my feelings about them, just facts. What she did, what she signed, what she took, what she hid. Tears welled up. Her hands clenched, then unclenched. She shook her head, tried to defend, then stopped. She looked around the room like a stranger waking up in someone else's house. "You don't get to define me anymore," I said. And she didn't answer, just walked slowly back to the door and left it open behind her. At my desk, the documents were already waiting. My final offer was typed clean across the top. I signed where I needed to, filed them with Corin. Finalization of the house title, assets, joint accounts, insurance, all separated. She would get nothing more than agreed, and I would owe nothing but breath. I attached a scanned copy and sent it to her, Bain, and the Locke legal counsel. One last line below my signature. "I release you. I release me." I stood and walked to the bedroom. I turned the lock, not with anger, but with peace. On the other side of that door, whatever we had was done. And I whispered through the wood, "Go, and never call here again." At dawn, I stepped out onto the porch with a fresh cup of coffee. The early October light washed over the trees. My yard was still a mess, but the kind of mess that reminded you something had finally been torn down. A couple of neighbors passed on their morning walk. One waved, another just nodded. Not pity, respect. I opened my phone one last time. No theatrics, no accusations, just a message. Silence once protected me. Now truth frees me. I pressed post, then slid the phone into my pocket. The sky above was pale blue, still streaked with night in parts. My breath was steady. My shoulders didn't feel so heavy. And I stood there knowing full well I wasn't healed. But I was upright and moving. I looked out at the street, at the light spreading across my porch, and thought, I never needed to make noise to be heard. I only needed to stop whispering. I closed the journal on my lap, got to my feet. Not the man she left, the man I returned to.